Hey, Arlie, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Well, thanks for having me on, Brian. I really appreciate it. I've been a big fan for a long time on this show.
Yeah.
My career started in sales, probably a little different than most people has. Um, when I was a teenager, my mom was dating my stepdad at the time. And I was, let's say, not the most trouble-free kid.
No,
And,
you're a little rascal.
yes. And I had gotten into a lot of trouble in high school and was going through anger management, some different types of stuff. And part of the process was to have a job.
Boy.
And searching for a job was difficult back then. 16, 17 years old, young kid, a lot of anger. And I think my stepfather gave me a job to impress my mother at the time. But for whatever reason, and thank goodness, I always say sales career saved my life. I sat down in front of this man, and he owned an engine distributor business, selling manufacturers to equipment manufacturers. And I thought, wow, this guy's got it together. He knows what he's doing. He's got a company. He was well respected by his employees. I'm going to do what this guy tells me. And I'm
Wow.
going to listen and I'm going to learn. And I made that decision. And he started out with giving me every garbage job to see if I would go away. Literally, my first job there was the engines would come in. We sold them in the marine environment. They had steel hose clamps on them. And I had to take lacquer thinner and get the paint off the hose clamps and then sell them on the parts counter for a nickel a piece.
Wow.
And I thought, you know what? He's trying to drive me away to see if I'm serious. And I stuck through it. And from there, I worked in different various engine prep department, parts department. And back in 2001, I took the industrial engine sales job. And to tell you I didn't know a thing about industrial engines would be the truth.
Now, give us a sense of who you're selling to. What's the price point? What are the issues?
So in the engine business, it's diesel engine off-road is mainly my arena. It's a very large industry.
That doesn't help narrow it down for us.
Yeah. Well, it's a large industry, but it's a small business. There's not many players in the market. When you think there's probably 10, 12 major engine manufacturers for the world. And we sell to what they call OEMs, which is original equipment manufacturers. So I'm taking an engine and trying to help them design and retrofit it into a piece of equipment that they want to manufacture: skid steers, generators, air compressors. It's a great industry because when that phone rings, I have no idea what I'm getting involved in. Yeah. I've done everything from a skid steer to an anti-personnel mining machine to pressure washers to hydraulic power packs, everything in the gamut. If it can be powered by an engine, I'm trying to get that business.
And so it seems hard because you got to get the right match, right? Is that the challenge?
Yeah. I always say in the engine business, you got to be part engineer.
Yeah.
You got to be, part salesman, technical, trainer. You got to be able to work with the customers and understand them, understand what their needs are. The biggest advantage for us and that I've found in my sales career is listening to the customer.
There you go. Yeah.
They will tell me everything I want to know and everything that they need if I just be quiet and ask some pointed questions. And that took the longest for me to learn.
Yeah.
And early in my career, I always said I had diarrhea of the mouth. I was going to go in, I was going to tell you how great my product was, and what the advantages were, and you were just going to buy it.
Yeah. And how did you hold that back?
Really working with my stepfather, I decided I was going to, after about a year and a half of not gaining any accounts, this isn't working. So I went to him and I said, I'm struggling. I don't understand why this customer would pick this other engine brand when mine was so much better. I had better value. And he taught me to listen. One of the big things was when you're dealing with manufacturers, they're proud of their product. And you've talked a lot about being genuine, about having genuine interest in their product line. And that was the biggest thing I had to learn. One of my biggest tactics was, can you give me a tour? I'd love to learn more about your product. And these guys would just tell me everything. And I found that I was extremely interested, and that genuine interest developed that relationship. Early on in my career, I was working for my father as in a distributorship, and I was dealing with small companies. So when you're talking to the guy, he's the engineer, he's the parts guy, he's the one that makes the decision, the vice president, So, and he also had very big passions about what he was doing. Watching your show and taking learn back in July, I left my dad's company. He sold it to a manufacturer, Yanmar, and in the middle of COVID in July, I decided I'm going to leave a business.
This is the time.
Yeah. 25 years I've been with the company, and I left and went to work for the manufacturer. So I went from dealing with small companies to multinational companies. Yeah. So my perspective has changed working from a manufacturer versus a distributor. And it's been a good, positive thing. But what I've learned too is no matter how big the company is, if they don't like you, you're not going to get the business. Well, it certainly doesn't make the sale, but it'll certainly cause you not to get the sale.
Well, yeah. And a lot of people kind of make that old school, but we're still people.
Yes.
And, the listening is great, but what causes the listening is that curiosity and interest in them and how they do it.
Absolutely.
Because
when the customer starts to look at me as the diesel engine expert,
there you go.
Then I got them. But it takes a long time to build that relationship, that trust, and that rapport with the customer. Our typical cycle is 18 months or better.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult. You have to stay in touch. COVID has been vastly different for me.
Well, you don't get the tour anymore, right?
Right. And I've always been a road warrior. On the road.
It's fun. Yeah.
I loved it. I've been around the world. I've dealt with so many different people, personalities. I've been called a cockroach and my card ripped up in my face. I've been walked into a place and felt like family, and everywhere in between. It's just been a wonderful career.
But you don't have a mechanical engineering degree, or do you?
No, I do not.
Okay.
I got my electronics degree.
Yeah, that's pretty hard.
Only to decide I didn't like it.
That's hard. Yeah.
I need interaction. I need to work with people. It gives me a base to understand the engines, especially now they've gone electronic. They've gotten way more technical than they were in the past. But it's still a relationship business.
It is. But how did you become so knowledgeable about the engines? Or did you have to?
I did. I would not say I'm a mechanic, but I have all the theory down. And it really, I learned from my stepfather and people in the industry that you have to put the time in. If you don't know your product, you're not going to be a great salesman. You have to know the product. And not only do I not have to know my product, I've got to know my competitor's product. And if you want to be great in sales, you got to put the time in, and you got to have a passion for it. I think if you're at a job and you don't have the passion for it, you're in the wrong job. I couldn't imagine doing anything other than sales. Maybe engineering. I do like that. I don't think I'm smart enough for that,
Yep.
but I love engines. I'm an engine guy, and it's the passion for the product. My wife always gets mad at me because we went to an opening of some club back before COVID went, and I saw a piece of equipment out front, and she's waiting in line to go in, and I'm over there pulling the hood open, trying to figure out what this thing is and how it works.
Well, that curiosity is great. But how long did it take you to become comfortable talking? Well, because I've sold stuff that, even though I was interested, probably passionate about it would be, but I didn't know. And I could hold I could hold a conversation, but it was much more about questioning than it was about telling.
Yeah. I got lucky that I had to work with a great team,
Yeah.
my father and others, and I was able to sit in a lot of sales meetings and learn through actual walking into a customer and have me, one meeting, you figure you're walking in, you're going to talk to one or two guys, and you walk into a room of 20 people, sitting there, firing questions away. And I've always learned to be honest. If I don't know the answer to something, I'm not going to try and BS my way through it. I'm going to tell them I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
I will confer with the factory, and I will get back to you. And the big thing was the getting back to them. If I didn't get the answer right away, I would at least send a little email that said, hey, you know what? I haven't forgotten that I don't have this answer for you yet. I'm still waiting on it. Here's my anticipated date. And that follow-up was the key, because every customer doesn't care that you have other customers.
They don't. And I don't think they also care that you know it all.
Correct.
But that you are the conduit to answer questions, that you are at least an expert in that space, but you don't have to be the creator of that engine.
That's correct. And I don't know everybody's equipment. I run into equipment all the time and I go, I don't even know what this thing does. So I until I can understand their piece of equipment, I don't understand. I can't understand how my engine fits or what I have to offer.
There you go. Yeah.
So the first thing I want to do is understand their business and their needs. And so a lot of times these meetings are, over 18 months. The first meeting is never about me. It's about what is your equipment? What are your needs? Because we don't have the retail. I'm not trying to convince a customer they need to buy this widget. They need a widget.
An engine. Right.
Yeah, they need an engine. I have to convince them that my engine and my service and my support and everything that goes with it is going to be the right fit for them.
And when they come to you or when you go to them, how often do they feel adamant that they know what they need versus?
Oh, all the time.
Really?
Oh, every one of them thinks they're an engine expert. and hardly, especially when you're dealing with the smaller companies, a lot of them, they say they have an engineer on staff, and that's just the guy who's been down the line the longest. He knows that this works. He has no idea why. And so it takes a little bit of talking, a little bit of asking the right question. What I try to do is not tell them, you can't tell them you're wrong.
Right. You have no idea what you're talking about.
What I have to do is phrase the question to get it
Oh,
to where I want them to realize what the answer is.
there you go. Yeah. And how do you do that? Because it's like, hey, I need a 450 3-cylinder. What's your question back to me?
Okay, how did you come up with that you needed a 453 cylinder?
I've been
Do
doing this
you,
for 100 years.
right,
Right.
right. Yeah. And do you have the load pattern? You know,
Okay,
do
there you
you
go.
have a
Yeah.
load pattern of your machine? Because we're going through that right now. The emissions, EPA is driving diesel engine
There you
emissions
go.
regulations. So in the old days, you'd take a big diesel engine, as long as it could fit in the machine, and it didn't matter if you put a 75 horsepower engine in there, but you only needed 35. As long as it fit in the machine and work, it'd run great.
Right. Size is one element.
Yeah. Today, with all the emissions technologies, you need to work the engine hard so that the after treatment systems work.
Okay.
So everybody thinks I need a 75, and I've been using a 75 for the last 15 years. Now you're coming in and telling me I only need a 45. And if you put the 75 in, it's not going to work. You're going to have problems. So asking them, how did they come up with that? Doing a load pattern, a lot of times we'll bring our test equipment in, hook it up, and give them a load pattern for them
Yep.
and show them, here's your load pattern. So,
And I got to assume they're trying to commoditize you.
oh, yes.
That
Yes.
your engine is equal or almost as good as A, B, and C engines.
Yes. And I've never worked with a line that we were the cheapest. I've never been able to. I've heard people say, salesmen, oh, I'll just come in at the lowest price and win it. It doesn't work, and it's lazy. It's
It's lazy and
ineffective.
very error prone.
Yes. So I've always worked with lines that provided a premium product that were always going to be more expensive, but you had to show the value in that. The quality, the longevity, the overall cost of sales. So I've done a lot of preparing PowerPoints and presentations to show that.
Yeah.
But that's tough too, because when you go into a room of people, you have to know your audience. The accountant is looking at numbers. The engineer is looking at technology. The vice president or the owner is looking at cost, but they want to see value. So it's hard. You have to tailor the presentations to the audience that's sitting in front of you.
And who tends to be the last vote? If the engineer says it's got to be you.
That's the new thing about coming into the new position that I'm at, going from small companies where one man makes the decision into a committee with larger companies.
So
If you talk to our engineering group, of course the engineers make the final decision. You talk
everybody
to
makes the final decision.
yeah. And that's something that I honestly learned from your show that I've taken a lot of value in, is not getting stuck with the one champion. And it has changed my outlook on how I look at these big companies. You have to get buy-in from every department. You got to know who is in the decision-making process.
And what decision are they making?
Absolutely.
Right. The engineer is going to say this is the best product. Doesn't mean they're going to buy it.
Absolutely. If you could be by far the best product, but if you're not price competitive, it's not going to happen.
Right. Or, somebody else end runs you, or somebody else comes up with a better payment plan, or throws a red herring into the mix.
Yes. Or in our industry too, doesn't do anything. Just lets the deal die on the vine.
Yeah. We'll stick with what we got.
I don't really need to make this change right now.
No, we'll revisit it next year.
Yeah. So it's been a challenge stepping up into the larger prospect of of working to identify who those players are. Because a lot of times that customer don't want to tell you. They're going to tell you, you're dealing with that engineer, he's going to tell you, oh, I'm the guy. Yeah.
Right. Not rarely do they ever say, I make a recommendation, but no one listens to me. No, they're all, every engineer I've ever dealt with, and they want to start beating you up on price, and they have no vote on price.
Yeah. And then you got the purchasing managers now who are taking as many classes as the salespeople are on how to beat down the price and how to get. I had a guy tell me one time, I've got to get a better price because I won't get a bonus if I don't. Just flat out came out and told me that.
Yeah. I mean, that, because I've had like some harebrained administrator in the meeting walk me out to the car and goes, the engineer's got to vote, but I decide.
Mm-hmm.
But usually there's one thing that they care about, whether it's that EPA admission or competitive advantage or some technical feature that's reason they're going to go with you or go with somebody else versus you.
Yeah, it's the big thing in our industry is, one is the overall value, but two, it's the support network that goes behind it. Everybody's engine at some point is going to break. And
got someone's who's going to fix it.
Who's going to fix it?
How are they going to fix it?
Yep. And how are your systems are, what is your response times? Those are all crucial features in our industry, and it's also too I always say that sales can sell the first engine. It's parts and service that keeps the customer.
But how do you get them to care about that in the sales process? Because that's an after sale pain.
Usually in the repower business where you're displacing another customer, they've gone cheaper and had the problems.
Yeah.
So it's just reinforcing and developing that trust that we're going to take care of you. We're focused on customer support. It's not just a cliche in our company.
Yeah.
Now with new customers, there's a lot, because there's not many players in our industry. There's the reputation has helped. The Yanmar, the brand that I represent currently, is known for quality. So usually you can tell, depending on who your competitors are, who's in the room, whether the customer cares about quality or they care only about price. And if it's only about price, 9 times out of 10, I'm not getting that business.
Yep. And the good old days when you could do the walk-in, my trick was to flip through the visitors.
Oh, I did. Yeah. That's the first thing I do, is go in that book and see who was there.
The receptionist would go, oh no, I just thought which page I sign on. I'd be like looking at it, trying to find out who's been in there and in what order is critical.
Yes. And also critical to me was, my grandfather used to always tell me, you treat everybody, no matter what station in life, with the same respect as you would the president of the company. Yeah. And I have gained business from receptionists. You go in, you
talk about the physical gatekeeper, right?
Yes. I mean, they control whether you get past that desk or not. They really do.
And they are the epicenter of the gossip within the company as well.
Isn't that amazing? I've never been anywhere where the receptionist wasn't the head of the gossip.
They've got not enough to do, and they see all the comings and goings.
They do. I had a receptionist one time. I had this customer. I chased him for 4 years. I was gonna make him my customer, and the receptionist would say to me, "I can't believe you keep coming by." I said, and I became friends with her. I'd take her to lunch. We would go out. She called me one time and she said, I think you better come over because my boss is very mad at a competitor of mine at the moment. I think it'd be a good time. I jumped in my car and drove 3 hours there, walked in the front door, and the guy was on the phone with my competitor and said, hey, forget it. Yamar's here. Hung up the phone, turned into my largest customer for the next 8 years.
Oh, the timing's critical, huh?
Oh, yes. And persistence.
And that's it, because they want to commoditize you
Mm-hmm.
because they have all the power when you are a thing. When you have that competitive advantage, then you have the power.
Absolutely.
Oh. What do you think? What would have helped you most today or 20 years ago when you started that you know today?
It, early on, I had all the energy, none of the knowledge or skill.
Oh,
I really don't think that I could have done it any different because I learned from the failures more than I did from the successes.
yeah.
I spent the first 2-3 years knocking on doors, getting cards thrown at me. And every time I learned something new. And then I actually got smart and I started hiring some of the older guys in the industry to come in and teach me. Uh, there was a lot of guys that had been road warriors for 20 years and didn't want to be on the road anymore, and their companies let them go. And I brought them in as my inside support staff, and I was very lucky to take advantage of that knowledge, and being open-minded and learning and always improving myself. The day I think I have this sales game down is the day I need to leave because I'm learning stuff every single day.
How big were your average deals?
In the distributorship, it was anywhere from 5,000 to 2.5 million. I mean, it was just all over the board.
Yeah.
Now in this new role, it's hundreds of millions of dollars in sales a year.
Wow.
It's the big leagues, and I've been lucky to surround myself with a great team. I think too that I would recommend to anybody, don't overlook your inside support staff.
Right.
You're only as good as the support that you get on the inside.
Right. Because this is a big decision for them. Because, like, when I sold software, it was the same type of thing because you're embedding it in someone else's product.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very different sell than like a tool or an app that they use and they can replace anytime.
Yeah, because their careers are on the line for making
Right.
a decision about you.
I mean, you're the sugar in the muffin.
Yeah. And usually, being in the engine, I'm usually the most expensive piece that they have to buy. So they're very cautious about that. We had one company, and I'll never forget it. It was the service manager. He said to me, I won't use brand X because back in 1978, they screwed me. And it was an inside person who was rude to him, and he never forgot it.
Yeah.
And so I think some of my success when I was working for my dad was I went in and I hired people that were passionate and had you can teach. I could teach you about the engines, the intricacies, the horsepower, the curves, the charts. I can't teach you customer service skills. Either you have it or you don't.
Yeah. And you got to care. And it's
That's
caring
what I mean.
part.
That's what I mean.
And
caring.
And because I was thinking this morning when I was on my walk, it's like, why like salespeople with chips on their shoulder become great salespeople like you did when you were a teenager.
Yeah.
And because the opposite doesn't work. The person who went to prep school, Ivy League college, comes out with a great degree. I've never met that person in sales.
No, You know, to
Not one.
say we were dirt poor as kids was an understatement, and I was going to climb my way out of it.
That's it. There's something about that view of life that fits into sales where the opposite does not.
Yep, and being ultra competitive.
Yeah.
When I walk into a room, I want to be the number one guy. You know, I want to be the best salesman that the company has. You
Right.
know,
But you
but
do
it
it
takes work to do that.
and your style, because, just sitting, this is the first time I met you. So I didn't know you from any but your LinkedIn profile, but you got a nice smile. You look like a friendly guy.
Yeah.
And I bet you could talk engines all day.
Oh yeah.
So your market wants to talk engines all day.
They do. They do. And also I need to learn more. I'm an equipment guy too. Not that I've sold equipment, but that's what my engines go into.
Yeah.
So I better have a passion for it, you know. And that's the key. I think whatever you do in sales, if you can have a passion for your industry and the willing and the drive to improve yourself,
Yeah.
you're going to be successful. Of course, you got to have thick skin. You
Yeah.
got
You
to be
can't.
able to take rejection. You got to be able to spend time alone. That's a lot of people don't realize about the road warrior. You spend an awful lot of time by yourself. And you better be comfortable with that.
Yeah. Cool. Hey, Arlie, I really appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
Like you mentioned, I'm on LinkedIn, you know, Arlie Badillion. I'm always posting and shamelessly plugging my company as best.
I wonder what that's like.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm mostly on LinkedIn and you know, I'm always trying to. I'm a firm believer in the digital age now and the digital marketing, and so yeah, I'm willing to happy to talk to anybody that wants to talk engines or anything else. Any tips I can learn to become a better salesman. You know, I'm always wanting to improve myself, and I'm willing to help anybody who wants to improve themselves in the sales business as well. That's why I love your show. I love the satire. I'm a satire guy.